money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today, too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Movie Night listeners, this is an interesting episode because we are coming out the day after Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Which also, ironically, is the day after the new version of Nosferatu has been released in theaters.
Yeah. Hope you all enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm sure it was great. And to honor that, we're going to talk about, I think, all of our collective favorite Nosferatus, 2000's Shadow of the Vampire. I will be taking the role of the person doing a plot summary.
I didn't even ask because I knew that you were, since it was kind of your idea, I was like, I'm going to make Matt. I don't even going to ask. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Totally fine. I think we're going to do this a little bit differently than we've been doing it the last couple weeks because, all honesty, this movie's not that plot heavy and layered. It's more... Well, it's layered, but like plot-wise, it's very direct. So I'm just going to very quickly knock out in like 3 paragraphs what this movie is about, and then I think we can just kind of discuss.
I was trying to be chill during that, and I completely opened that in the middle of your sentence, and then also just stepped on you saying that. But I did open a beer during there because I was like, I want to have a little something to have while you tell the story. I got very foggy, very demure,
nice
IPA from Abomination.
Nice,
because I mean, if there's anything demure, it's Nosferatu. He's very demure.
And I have Nosferatu from Great Lakes. I mean, I had to go the exact I knew that was what we had to do.
That was amazing. Cheers.
Perfect. All right. So,
for those people about it.
For those of you who haven't watched Shadow of the Vampire, which I do recommend that you watch because as far as I know, this is the only 2-time Academy Award nominated movie we've ever discussed on this podcast.
Yeah.
I've been trying to skim our list here, and I think it's got to be like there
outside
might be
of
one...
maybe like some Tim Burton like makeup, wardrobe, special effects nominations. Like, but this
Sleepy
was like
Hollow,
an
maybe?
acting. Yeah, this was an acting nomination.
Yeah.
So the year is 1921, and we are on the set of Nosferatu. Our main characters are the director F.W. Kyle, I'm going to lean on you for this name.
Murnau.
Murnau.
Oh, fuck.
And we're gonna also be hanging out with the vampire Max Schreck. FW warns his cast and crew that Max is an extreme method actor who will only be appearing for night shoots and almost always in makeup. Things start to fall apart, however, when Max begins to attack and kill members of the crew.
Can I pause you there for just a second?
Go for it.
Because I want to say one of my favorite lines is when Shrek goes, "Get out of my swamp!"
Yeah.
It's my favorite line in this movie.
And you know what? I'm going to say that that's basically what happens. Like, he attacks the crew, and what we start to see an interesting thing with this movie, and I feel like this is most of the discussion that you can have around the movie, is like who is the real villain? Is it Max Schreck, who's a vampire doing a thing that vampires do? Or is it the director of the movie who's so thirsty for this film to be a success that he's willing to sacrifice anyone who comes in front of him? Probably my favorite scene in the movie is after Schreck has killed his cameraman and he's yelling at him, but his main frustration isn't that he killed somebody. Like, he's like, why couldn't you have killed a script girl? It's that he killed someone that's going to delay the movie a day or two because now he has to get a new photographer to come in. And it's like, that's like the first point where you start to really see how unhinged John Malkovich's character actually is. And it just keeps building and building until we get to the final part of this movie where, like, Schreck is just fucking killing people left and right, and he just won't stop filming what's happening.
Oh, the professionalism that Murnau has throughout the whole piece is wild. Like, I think that, like, there are the moments where he sort of unleashes on Schreck, but at the same time, like, every moment that he's in front of his producers or in front of most of his crew, like, besides the general stresses of being a filmmaker, he has, like, this professionalism that's like, I have to get the thing done and I have to be calm about it even though all these people are dying around me. I thought it was so great. I was like, Malkovich is, I mean, I know Malkovich is great, but just, he's also a person that, like, when you see any role that you see him in, at least I'm excited to see, like, what he does with it, because it's never like, he can do Malkovich on Malkovich on Malkovich and just, like, be that, but then, like, Of Mice and Men, and then, like, Shadow of the Vampire, and it's just, like, the range of his acting is fucking unreal. I'm never bored by his performance. And same with Dafoe. I mean, honestly, like, these two are absolute powerhouses in this movie. This is the first time I saw this. I had never seen this before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have had it on my, like, to watch shelf for probably a year. Like, I had bought a DVD of it cheap, and it's been on my shelf for forever. So again, like, I love when I get to watch stuff for the first time for this show, because it gives me homework and, I actually get to, like, sit and watch it. And usually, sometimes they're not this caliber, but man, this was great.
Well, and it's definitely one of those movies that you're watching, you're like, yes, of course. Like, as we know, horror in general does not get a lot of Academy attention, but it's like, even the Academy, who kind of turns their nose at horror films, like, the performances that you're getting from Dafoe and Malkovich are so undeniable in this movie that it's like, of course someone's going to pay attention to this. And it was, so the nominees were for makeup and hairstyling and supporting actor for Willem Dafoe. I feel like Malkovich was robbed of a nomination, in all honesty, because he is giving so much of that Malkovich energy, like, in every scene.
No, I thought he was great. And there's so much, we were talking briefly before we started, there's, like, so much nuance and so many stories being told, like, both on the screen and then beyond, because you have an understanding of, like, where these people are going in and out. Like, when Malkovich goes, or when Murnau goes to try to calm the investors after sending Carrie Elwes as the cinematographer back, and they're not even on the same set. They're just trying to figure out what has happened and what's going to happen, and then they come back together. It's like, you have all these stories told sort of off screen. I actually literally thought that this was a retelling of the making of the movie. So then when it got into this sort of fictionalized thing, I was like, oh shit, which I love, because there's a lot of movies about movies, right? Like, but not that so many that are so sort of fictionalized and messed around with.
Well, it's fictionalized, but it's fictionalized based on a rumor, right? Because I feel like that's always been the rumor, is like, or at least the urban legend was that this Max Schreck actor was so believable as Nosferatu that people started to truly believe he was a vampire. And, like, for someone, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Stephen Katz, who wrote this screenplay and really doesn't have a lot of credits, especially noteworthy credits besides this. But to, like, look at that and be like, all right, well, what if we took that urban legend, made a film where it was factual, but in doing so, we're also saying a lot about the film industry in general. Like, it's because it's such a takedown. Like, there's a lens where someone's watching this and just like, yeah, well, that's probably how it was in like 1921. It's like, motherfucker, that's how it still is in 2024. Like, there are still directors and producers who will just let their cast and crew die if they're going to make the movie that might make them famous. Like,
right.
It literally has happened in the last 3 or 4 years where someone has died on a movie set. That was definitely a vanity project trying to win an award, and they still finished that movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's in like any other world, like if you were in a band and your lead singer died on stage, you probably weren't going to keep being a band for the rest of that tour. You know what I mean? You're like, all right, tour's done.
Right,
but like
on.
in a film, it's like, all right, let's just get another camera guy and keep going. Like, it's unhinged. And I think that it's kind of interesting that they use that framework of like, how much would a director be willing to endanger his crew to get his vision done?
The parallels of like vampirism is so great, and it's like the question that you asked before. It's like, who is the bad guy? And it's like, well, no, Shrek is doing vampire things because he was asked to do vampire things, and that's his job. Like he's doing like Shrek is doing his job. Nobody else knows that he's there to do that job, but Murnau, right? Like, so that's the boss's fault. Like, that's his fault, It's really fun, especially those first scenes where Shrek starts to interact with actors and is like pretty clueless to the whole thing.
Well, and I love there's that juxtaposition of like when he first shows up, the actors are just like, oh my god, what a performance! Like,
the humor of it all. I love that there was such a movie. It's so funny. It's so funny.
But it's funny in like a subtle way. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny in the like asking, why couldn't you kill a script girl? You know what I mean? Like, that's just an inherently funny line.
Yeah.
Or like one of the early lines that makes me laugh is when they're filming the movie and the innkeeper shows up to try to stop them because they've taken down all the crucifixes, and he just yells, "Alvin, a native has wandered into the scene."
A native has wandered into the scene.
He's so good.
Yeah, but it is. So it's like, it's comedic.
Yeah.
I think because I know Scott, and I know what Scott doesn't like. And I feel like we get characters like John Malkovich in sitcoms all the time, right? We get the like person who's a douchebag, but for some reason you can't help but kind of like him. And this is such a much more digestible version than like your cast of Seinfeld or your Always Sunny in Philadelphia characters, where it's like they're all sociopaths and they're all terrible people, but like as a viewer you start to just root for them anyway. Like, this does such a good job of like, he's a bad person, he has the funniest lines in the movie, so you can't help but love him, but you never step away not thinking he's the fucking villain of this movie.
Yeah. No, I'd agree.
Also, I mean, like the way that I've seen the original Nosferatu a lot. I love that movie. And I think I've only watched this movie 4 times now. I mean, I love this movie too, but it's one of those ones where I'm not going to sit down and rewatch it. I mean, I probably won't rewatch Nosferatu anytime soon either. There are so many iconic shots in that movie, and I love the fact that they do that in this film.
Yeah.
But they also, I mean, it's done in such a way that they are doing legit reshoots of the original shots, but then you also see them doing the shoot. It's such a fun, immersive, but also hilarious presentation. It's just so great. I have nothing bad to say about this movie. I think this movie is a perfect film.
Oh my god! And the runtime and to be able to do all that layering that you're talking about, like there's technical and visual stuff that takes up space. There is like nuance and like relationship stuff that takes up space, but it all is still kept. I mean, it's not. I think it's 90 minutes, like 90-ish minutes. It's not crazy.
It's 92 minutes. It is
what?
a 92-minute movie.
I love a movie that gets to the fucking point.
But again, think again of like how rare that is. Mm-hmm. For like when we're talking about these like 5-star Academy Award nominated movies, they're very rarely 90-minute long movies.
No.
And Kyle, you thinking that this was possibly based on a true story, just a retelling, I think part of that, and I hope I'm not stealing anyone's double feature here, but I think part of it is that it came out almost around the exact same time as Gods and Monsters, which was like a little bit more of like telling the life of James Whale when he did Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Like, those movies came out a year apart from each other.
Oh, that's
to the
crazy.
point that that's what I thought this was. Like, when it was advertised as a kid, I literally thought, oh, this is just about the making of Nosferatu. Like, I'll get to it one of these days. And it wasn't until college when I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna watch this.
I wonder, like, what movie could you make a fictionalized or like urban legend-y movie about the making of now? Like, would like an easy, like a telling of like how they made Easy Rider like be of interest, you know, because it has that cultural thing? Or
I'll
like,
tell you the one that I wanted to write.
Yeah,
I
right,
tried.
right.
I wanted to, and I still would love to. Kyle, maybe side note, we should work on this. I always thought that there was a fascinating story to tell about the making of Pink Flamingos. Like the making of a group of scrappy weirdos in the middle of Baltimore making a gross out film just out of pure fuck you attitude. And like, it's one of those movies where the more you read about what happened on the set and how like crazy and drug filled it was, like, but it needs to be stuff like that. There's a truly bad Chevy Chase movie from the 80s. I think it's Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher, called Over the Rainbow. That is it's awful. Like, it's an awful movie, but it's a fictionalized retelling of the rumor that when making the Wizard of Oz, they had to put all of the actors who were playing the Munchkins in a hotel room, and that like in a hotel, like a posh hotel, and this hotel was overrun by all of these actors who were like drinking and having orgies and like disrupting the whole hotel. And like in the 80s they made a fictionalized version of it.
That sounds fucking awful.
It sounds awful. It
so
is
bad.
awful, dude.
It's
bad.
really,
it's
really
bad.
bad.
Kyle, have you seen it?
It sounds worse than they have. I think the VHS-PS has
They
it.
do. That's how I finally saw it, because I needed to see how bad it was.
They
and it's
buried
bad.
that thing, dude. They bury that motherfucker. Because they should, and they should.
Yeah, and they should.
But thank you, VHS-PS.
Literally
think
anything with Chevy Chase should be buried.
I think it needs to be a film where it's like the story. Like, I think that's why I like that movie about the life of the guy who created National Lampoon. I wouldn't want to watch a full movie about the making of Caddyshack, but there's so much of a behind the scenes how crazy that set was that you still want to get bits and pieces of it. So like,
I liked the Anthony Hopkins Hitchcock. Like, I think that there's a few moments of that I thought were like worthy of sort of like the telling of him, but it's also, you know, it's a much bigger piece. I actually, you know, what would be one that I think would be compelling would be maybe, I mean, we still need a couple more years separated from it, but like, if someone told me that they were making a fictionalized movie about how Peter Jackson made the Lord of the Rings trilogy on like the shoestring, very independent budget that he did, like, I'd watch that because I'm sure it's a fascinating story. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Because he's like testing all types of new technologies and stuff like that. But,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I also think that what we're kind of losing in this conversation is a movie that takes a rumor that is very easily disputed, that has since mutated into, I mean, like, it was almost 80 years between Nosferatu coming out and then this movie. 79 years.
I gotta check out Snopes. Snopes will have an answer for us for sure. Like,
Matt Schreck was like already. He had been in a ton of films before Nosferatu and a ton of films after Nosferatu. It's very obvious that he wasn't a fucking vampire. But I do love a good urban legend. And if we could get if we could find one that could be very easily debunked, but you still have a very interesting, compelling story, that's what I think that you're asking for, Matt.
A movie about Pink Floyd intentionally syncing their album up with the Wizard of Oz.
That would be awesome. You know, I don't even like Pink Floyd, but like, if they could give it the like Rocket Man kind of treatment.
God, Rocket Man did the way that I almost want every band biopic to be way more loose with the facts.
So fucking
knowingly.
You could do Across the Universe, but make it about Dark Side of the Moon, and I would watch it. I don't give a shit about that band, but I would love something that's just like very trippy and weird.
Yeah. All right. Shadow of the Vampire has inspired this sort of at least exercise in trying to figure out like what is the thing. There might not be a thing, but what is at least the closest thing to that, which would be really interesting. Damn. Okay. I'll think about that later.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Help! Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to?
Do you experience a love for monster movies from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
You know, I mentioned God and Monsters. So, in case I steal anyone else's double feature, let's jump into double features.
Matt, you go first because you did the heavy lifting.
I'm going to go with another movie that I think equally tells a great story, recreating famous shots and stuff like that, but is a less psychotic and evil filmmaker. And I'm going to go with Ed Wood. I think Ed Wood would be a fun double feature with this.
Nice.
That'd be solid.
Dude, I love that idea. I think
against my better judgment, like what I want to do is watch a second vampire movie, but I think that if we were going with the theme, I'm going to pick Behind the Mask because it's a very similar vibe in the meta-ness of it, and also the filmmaking aspect and the discussion about movie making in general, I suppose, and like what you who can be sacrificed for it. But plus, it gives me an opportunity to rewatch that movie, and I love that movie.
Yeah, why not?
We were supposed to watch it this year. Not that like we can't, but we were gonna like move it into our spooky season stuff, and it just it just fell through the cracks. But God, that movie is an all timer for me. I'm going to pair it with American Movie. I think that like if there is like a movie about movie making that also has the same energy, it's American Movie. I think it'd be a great double feature.
Well, those are all very good double features. And guys, unfortunately, it's past Christmas, so it's too late to buy stuff from our website for Christmas gifts. But you can get an early jump on some good Valentine's Day gifts for your beloveds. So get them a Sulfur Barely Knower t-shirt. Get her a Feminomicon shirt. Anything else, really. We've got a TeePublic website. Or just visit our website at hmnpodcast.com. Find us on social medias, HMN Podcast everywhere. And support us on Patreon, patreon.com/HMN Podcast. And now we'll roll into the final segment of the podcast where we talk about stuff that we watched or read or listened to or whatever. And
Didn't you have a snappy name for that, Matt?
I did at one point, and then I forgot what it was.
Okay.
What? Oh, no.
So did I.
No, what's going on was
the promos.
What is going on? Yeah.
What's going on?
What's going on? I'm going to keep this one short and sweet, but I saw Wicked Part 1.
Wait, there are multi-parts for this?
Oh yeah, this is just the first act of the musical.
Of how many? Is it 3?
It's going to be 2. They just split the musical into its 2 acts as 2 separate movies. From
but then also
everything
made it each act is as long as a musical.
Yeah. So what I will say from having watched it, I knew nothing about the musical going in. I mean, I won't say I didn't know nothing. I knew it was about the Wizard of Oz, and I knew the song Defying Gravity. I was like really taken aback by how good it was. Like everyone was saying it was good. I was shocked by how immersive I found the 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is a long time. But when you're having these vivid colors and like all of these great songs, like it's just like good song after good song after good song after good song, that helps a little bit. From what I've seen online from the people in the musical theater community, they are saying that this is the greatest stage to film adaptation of anything they've ever seen.
Yep.
Mostly because like even if you go on like Wikipedia and read like changes made from musical to screen, it's like something as simple as like this song sung in a library when it used to be sung in front of the school. Like that's like as like deep as the changes go. They really fit it to the structure. And like thankfully, because musicals are in 2 acts, like it's not like when I saw Pirates 2 not knowing that it was going to be a 2-parter and it just sort of ends mid-movie and it's like, all right, see you in a year to find out what happens next. Like the act feels like an ending.
Yeah.
But also like you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens next. It's the way that like a good trilogy or like the way like something like this is supposed to feel.
It's the way Across the Spider-Verse makes you feel, right?
Yes, that is exactly right. And yeah, just like Defying Gravity is a fucking banger of a song, and everyone does a great performance.
Popular? Like everybody talks
Popular's
about Defying Gravity. Popular is such a better song.
Popular
and Ariana
rips.
Grande crushes it on Popular too.
Oh,
but
I'm
like,
sure she does. Oh, I didn't even make that simple equation that she was going to be the one.
Oh, she's
rocking Popular.
So I will tell you guys this much, because I told this to Barb, and this isn't a spoiler. As we left, I said I didn't realize what Wicked was actually about, because I really only knew the songs Popular, What's This Feeling, and Defying Gravity. Those were the 3 songs I really knew. I thought that Glinda and Elphaba were sisters, for starters. Not the case.
Oops.
And secondly, I thought it stuck to the true, like, I thought it was true to like Glinda's the good witch and Elphaba is the wicked witch, and that they both started off good and we're watching Elphaba be corrupted by evil the whole time. And that is not what this is about at all.
Interesting approach.
Like
I kind of love that for you.
Yeah,
I
like
love
halfway
that.
through the movie, I'm like, wait, Elphaba's pretty nice and Glinda's really awful. And then it started.
I love
Matt,
that your
you sweet summer
expectations are
child.
just sweet
So
boy, sweet boy.
my plan now is to stay as blind to what happens in Act 2 as possible, so that I can go in and be just as startled and shocked by the twists and turns.
That's so funny that like Matt has lived his entire adult life not knowing anything about Wicked. It's super funny to me.
I knew a
Well, I
handful
also
of
feel
songs,
like at
and
some
that's
point
it.
in time you would have come across the Gregory Maguire book. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's not out of your realm of,
it's
or like out of
straight
your
within
reach.
Matt's.
That's the thing that I think is really funny.
can't believe
It's
this.
so in my world that I just missed it. Like, I read YA and fantasy romance shit all the goddamn time.
All the time.
Like,
all the
Literally
time.
every day.
yeah.
Every goddamn day of your life, bro.
Whatever. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say. So moving on to you guys.
Kyle?
I am just about done. I'm like, according to Goodreads, 15% away from finishing Raw Dog by Jamie Loftus. And Raw Dog is a book about hot dogs.
Are you for real?
Yeah. It's
Is it a nonfiction book about how they're made? What are you talking about?
So it's a lot of things. It is. So Jamie Loftus is a comedian and podcaster, and this is their first book, and it is about their quote-unquote hot dog summer, which is a summer in which they traveled cross-country and ate 3 to 4 hot dogs a day at different spots that are known for their hot dogs in different cities. Yeah. But it's also it's also a book about a person driving cross-country with their significant other at the time and what that looks like through COVID, what that looks like to go see their father who has lung cancer and is going to get going to get it removed, but it's also, again, amidst COVID, what the country looks like throughout, and the most like American thing that you can look at, which is or you can eat everywhere, which is the hot dog. Regional thing. Like there's a regional, it's incredible. And then there's also this criticism of capitalism and particularly how we and like the meatpacking industry and labor unions and the fucking hot dog eating contest, and like, you know, there's little vignettes about ballpark dogs, and it's not just like food criticism and like this person. It's a lot more than that. And I've been so fascinated with the way that Loftus writes. You know, I had listened to a podcast that she had done about spiritualism in the United States, which is really interesting. I want to say it's not called Ghost Town. So forgive me, I forget what it's called, but I had gotten it for my birthday, and I took it on a trip with me, and I read almost the entire thing on the airplane. Like this last like 30% has been limited because I'm not reading on a plane. You know, I absolutely crushed it reading on my trip, and it's a great book. Highly recommend. Super funny, like hysterical, and also really informative, and then also like really sad at times, and like difficult because like, you know, it's reflective of a time.
Yeah, it sounds like such a Matt thing.
Well, especially because I know this comedian. Like I know, I didn't realize they had written a book, but as soon as you said their name, I think that if I'm remembering correctly, I think that they worked for Cracked at one point or something. Like,
nice.
Because I follow them on Facebook, and it had to have been because they had shown up in some part of my like regular comedy sphere, and and Cracked would be one of those things at the time where I would have been like, this person's funny, I'm gonna follow them.
You know, and you know, everything, I mean, it's a really recent book, so it like goes right up until, I mean, we're talking the first Trump administration and like the regulations upon the meatpacking industries and plants and the COVID outbreaks among them, and all of these really, I mean, truly horrific things that, listen, I'm a trash eater. I'm a lover of hot dogs. It probably won't make me stop eating a hot dog, but it will certainly make me look at all the meat that I buy. And I mean, hot dogs are pretty low on the totem pole, and they're regulated so much less. And with the upcoming administration, everything's going to be regulated so much less than it should be, so it makes me a little nervous, but golly, it's really great. Raw Dog by Jamie Loftus. Thoroughly enjoying it. Scott,
all right, Scott, take us home.
I watched Alien Romulus, but that's not the thing that I think is funny. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I watched it on Disney Plus, which I think is hilarious.
Yes, love it.
And I mean, they have all of the Alien and all of the Predator movies on there now. I think all the Predator movies too, which is weird because I thought the Predator was on HBO Max or Hulu or whatever Prey came out on. I thought that they had all the permissions for that.
The reason why it's on Disney Plus is Disney owns Hulu now, so all of the Hulu stuff has bled on to Disney Plus.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense then. But anyway, I enjoyed it very much. Fede Alvarez is a favorite of mine when he gets it right, and I think that he did a good job making a fun movie. I had a good time watching it. I thought that it had great pacing. I didn't love some of the callbacks to the other movies, but I think that I'm at a point where the meta of like reusing a line or a concept to like elbow the viewer is at an all-time low.
Yeah, it feels real hack anymore.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Deadpool and Wolverine kind of kicked that horse a lot, dead horse a lot.
I'll use a wrestling term. It's a cheap pop. It's like a way to get someone to just be like, hey, yeah, he said the thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be really interesting when we get Marvel movies coming out again, like traditional MCU movies coming out again, to see if they continue to do that or if they lean away from that, because I feel like that was really their bread and butter for a really long time, was like Easter eggs and being like, oh, is that character gonna do the thing? That character does the thing. Oh, fuck yeah! Like that's what the audience is supposed to think. And this is also the reason why Megan will no longer watch. Well, I mean, she would if I asked her to, but she just had such a bad time watching whatever the last MCU thing was that we attempted, that because she was like, I just don't know any of the backstory, like, because she never read the comics, and right. And I get it, like it's exclusory, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's
been my problem with it too. I can never jump in. Like I
don't
don't feel like I can jump in, even if they say that it's like, okay to come in.
There are like 12, 18 movies, whatever that is, and there are like a half dozen TV series now that are all in the MCU, and they've also now brought in like the stuff that was happening with Sony, and they're bringing in the Fox stuff because they get to have the mutants now, and it's just a lot to handle, right? And like, yeah, I'm immersed in it because I grew up reading comics, but even for me, like, I do pre-work before I go see a movie because I'm like, I don't know a lot of what's happened in comics in the last 15, 20 years.
Your pre-workout is just comics.
Yeah, I said pre-work, not pre-workout. Let's be fair here. But yeah, I thought that it was good. I thought back to the Romulus thing. I thought that it was a good movie. It was really cool to look at. I thought the pacing was good. I really liked the characters I was supposed to like, and the fucking monster looks sick. Like the one that everybody's seen the stills of, just it looks sick. It really nothing. I have no complaints for a popcorn movie, and it's so much better than the last Alvarez thing I saw was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Texas Chainsaw, or whatever it's called. The one that came out in like 2022. Yeah. Is that what it was? Yeah. Whatever that one was. That was absolutely god awful. Yeah. And I was like, man, fuck this guy. But I mean, like I said, when he gets it right, he gets it right. And so I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend anybody that likes the Alien franchise to give it a shot if you haven't already, which I'm sure that the people that like the Alien franchise already have given it a shot, or like the people that are hardcore about it. But I mean, as listeners of the show know, we're not hardcore into the Alien franchise. When we did Alien 3, we really slummed it because we were not slumming it, but like we've kind of, didn't do it justice, did do the franchise justice. But just wait, because someday we will do Alien Resurrection or whatever it is, and the one with Ron Perlman in it for the actual show,
Resurrection.
And
we'll get there.
It's coming
people will
up
be so mad at us.
I mean, yeah.
They'll only be mad at us if we like it. I think that's a pretty hated movie.
I can promise you I won't like it. I remember my last watch of it.
Hey, one thing I'll say about the Alien Resurrection is that it does, if we're talking about urban legends from movies, and I think this one has been proven, Sigourney Weaver apparently nailed that over the head swoosh on the first shot and blew everybody away. So
she rips. She ripley's.
She ripley's.
She's great. She ripley's. Somebody sent an incredible care package to Free Blockbuster, and it had Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Resurrection. So now, I mean,
you got the quadrilogy.
Somebody sent the DVD quadrilogy. It's lovely. I've never seen anything besides 1 and 3 thanks to this show. So, you know what?
Rewatch
maybe
Alien.
Romulus.
Watched Alien and Aliens with Barb's oldest son, and I've talked a lot of trash on Aliens for just being like a dumb action movie, but man, even at its long length, that movie moves. It's still pretty damn good. It may just be because I'm really nostalgic for playing the arcade game in the 90s, but whatever.
I mean, how could you pass that up?
And talking about nostalgia, baby, we don't know what we're watching next week because we're recording this before y'all voted on it on Black Friday. But stay tuned and find out what movie won the votes. Bye.
listening to the Geekscape Network.